Ethan had never been one to believe in the supernatural. He was a regular guy, working a regular job in a small tech company in the middle of the city. Most of his days were filled with meetings, emails, and late-night coding sessions. He liked his job, but there was always something missing, some sense that there was more to life than just working from 9 to 5. He never imagined that a single evening would change everything. It started like any other day. Ethan had been staying late at the office trying to finish up a project before the weekend. The fluorescent lights in the office flickered, and the usual hum of the computers was the only sound in the quiet room. He had a coffee cup in hand, staring at the screen, typing away mindlessly, when he noticed her. She wasn't supposed to be there. The office was empty and no one had scheduled a meeting with him. But there she was, standing in the doorway. Watching him, she was tall, with striking features. Her hair shimmered in a way that made it look almost otherworldly. Her eyes, bright, curious, and full of mystery, seemed to see right through him. Her skin, a soft shade of lavender, looked delicate but strong at the same time. Ethan blinked, not sure if he was seeing things. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice sounding more surprised than he intended. The woman smiled and Ethan noticed how her smile seemed to light up the room. It was warm, inviting, yet filled with a quiet confidence that made Ethan feel both uneasy and intrigued at the same time. She took a step into the room. "I hope so," she replied with a voice that seemed to carry the weight of the universe. It wasn't an accent he recognized, but it was smooth, like a melody. "I'm Lyra. I've been looking for you, Ethan." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. How did she know his name? He stood up, pushing his chair back. Wasn't used to strangers showing up at his workplace, especially ones who seemed so out of place. "I think you have the wrong person," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm just an average guy working here. I don't think we've met." Lyra didn't seem fazed by his confusion. She took another step closer, her gaze never leaving his. "Oh, I know who you are. You're the one I've been waiting for." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. This was getting weird fast. Forced himself to smile, hoping to brush off the strange encounter. Maybe she was just someone who had wandered into the wrong office by accident. He had seen his fair share of weirdos, after all. "I'm sorry, but I think you should leave. It's late and the office is closing." Lyra's expression softened, and she tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand why he wasn't as eager to talk as she was. "You don't recognize me, do you?" Ethan shook his head, still unsure what to make of her. "No, I don't." The silence between them stretched for a moment, before Lyra stepped forward and reached into her bag. Ethan instinctively took a step back, not sure if he should be worried or not. But then she pulled out a small device, shaped like a thin, metallic disc. It pulsed with a soft light, its surface shifting as if it were alive. Ethan watched, unable to look away, as she placed the device on the desk between them. "This," she said softly, "is why I'm here. It's a message for you." Ethan's heart raced. Was this some kind of prank, a hidden camera show, or a clever marketing stunt? But something in her eyes told him this wasn't a joke. Wasn't playing around. "What kind of message?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she pressed her fingers gently onto the device, and it began to hum softly. A holographic image appeared above it, flickering to life. It was a series of symbols, complex, alien-looking, and completely unfamiliar to Ethan. But there was something about them that felt familiar, as if he had seen them before in a dream or a far-off memory. "Do you recognize them?" Lyra asked. Ethan stared at the symbols, his mind racing. He didn't recognize them at all, but there was something about the image that pulled at him deep inside. It was like the symbols were calling to him, whispering something he couldn't quite hear. He shook his head, trying to clear the fog in his mind. "No," he said finally. "I don't." Lyra's eyes softened, and she smiled again.
"Ow."
"Will," she said. "In time." Ethan blinked, confused and unsettled. He opened his mouth to ask her more questions, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "There's no need for more questions right now," she said gently. "I'll explain everything soon. Just trust me when I say that you're part of something much bigger than you realize." "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice shaking slightly. Lyra took a step closer, her presence overwhelming in a way that was hard to describe. "I'm not from here," she said, her voice low and steady, "but I've been watching you for a long time. You and I were connected, Ethan, more than you know." Ethan's head spun. This couldn't be real, right? An alien woman in his office telling him that they were connected, that he had some kind of destiny to fulfill? He wasn't sure if he should laugh or run for the door. But then, Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder, and for the briefest moment, Ethan felt a jolt of warmth spread through him, as if she had somehow reached inside and connected with him on a level deeper than anything he had ever felt. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "We have time, but we don't have forever." Ethan stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what was happening. His mind was racing, but all he could focus on was her eyes. Those deep, knowing eyes that seemed to carry all the answers he had been searching for his whole life. And then without another word, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving Ethan standing there, more confused than ever before. The next few days were a blur for Ethan. After the strange encounter with Lyra, his life seemed to be filled with questions, doubts, and a feeling of unease he couldn't shake off. It wasn't just the oddness of her appearance, her alien beauty, or the cryptic message she had left behind. It was something deeper. Something about her words and the strange device she had shown him gnawed at his mind. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Ethan tried to continue his usual routine. He went to work, met with clients, and did his best to focus on his projects. But no matter what he did, his thoughts kept drifting back to that night, to Lyra, to the message that she had given him. The device was still sitting on his desk, untouched. He had tried to ignore it, hoping that it would somehow lose its power over him. But every time he looked at it, the holographic symbols from that night flickered in his mind. The symbols had been strange, alien-looking, and yet familiar. He couldn't explain why. It was as if they had been planted in his brain, and every now and then they resurfaced in his thoughts, demanding his attention. One evening, Ethan decided he couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed the device from his desk and stared at it, willing himself to understand. "What is this?" he muttered to himself. He pressed his fingers onto it, the same way Lyra had done. At first, nothing happened. The device was still and silent. Ethan frowned, his heart racing a little faster with every passing second. But then, as if answering his unspoken question, the device began to hum softly. The lights on it flickered, and within moments, a hologram appeared once again. This time, it wasn't the symbols that greeted him. Instead, a new image formed, an image of Lyra. Her face was calm, her eyes soft, and almost sympathetic. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "Ethan," Lyra's voice came through the device, her tone steady and clear, as if she had been expecting this moment. "I knew you would eventually try to understand. I knew you couldn't ignore the pull between us, the bond." Ethan stood frozen, his mind still reeling from the sight of her. It was almost like she was there with him, standing in front of him. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The reality of the situation was still too overwhelming. "I know you have questions," Lyra continued. "Ain't I'm here to give you the answers? First, you need to understand something important. You're not just any ordinary human, Ethan. You've been chosen." The words hit Ethan like a wave. He took a step back, his mind struggling to catch up. Chosen. What did that mean? He was just a guy working a 9-to-5 job. There was nothing special about him, nothing that could possibly make him someone worthy of being chosen. "Oh, you wave." "Always felt different, haven't you?" Lyra's voice cut through his thoughts, as though she could sense his confusion. "You've always felt like there was something more to your life, something that you couldn't explain. You've been looking for answers for a long time. But now, Ethan, the answers are coming." Ethan's heart beat faster. He had always felt that way, that nagging feeling that there was something out there, something more than what his simple life offered. But this was something beyond what he had ever imagined. Lyra continued, her eyes now filled with a mixture of warmth and determination. "The message I gave you, the symbols, the device, it's all connected to you, to the future. There's a purpose to your life, a greater destiny that's waiting for you to discover. I've been sent to help you understand it." Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was insane. How could any of this be real? He had no special destiny. He was just an ordinary man, yet something deep within him stirred. The part of him that had always felt different, always felt like there was something more, was suddenly awake. His mind raced with 1,000 questions. How? He whispered, his voice barely audible. How do you know all of this? Why me? Lyra's smile softened. We're chosen because of who you are. You've always had the potential, Ethan. But you've been waiting for the right moment. The right person. And that person is me. Ethan was silent for a long time. He had always believed in logic and reason. But this defied everything he had ever known. A part of him wanted to laugh, to dismiss it all as some kind of elaborate prank. But another part of him, the part that had always felt that something was missing in his life, was slowly starting to believe. I don't understand, he finally said, his voice trembling. What is this bond? What do you mean I'm chosen? Lyra's expression grew serious. The bond between us is more than just a connection. It's the key to something far bigger. You and I are linked, Ethan. Our destinies are intertwined. Together, we have the power to change the future not just of Earth, but of many worlds. Ethan shook his head, trying to process the gravity of her words. You're telling me that I'm... what? A part of some prophecy? That I have the power to change the future? Lyra nodded, her gaze unwavering. Yes, but it's not just about power. It's about balance. The galaxy is at a crossroads, Ethan. The choices we make will determine the fate of countless lives, and you are the one who can tip the scales. The room felt suddenly smaller, the weight of her words pressing down on him. Ethan could hardly breathe. He had never asked for any of this. He didn't want to be part of some galactic conflict. He didn't even know how to begin understanding what she was saying. But Lyra wasn't finished. The first step, she said gently, is accepting the truth. You are meant to be with me, Ethan, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of all that we are about to face. There is much more to this than you realize. Ethan stood there, still processing, but something inside him began to change. It wasn't just fear anymore. There was something else, something he couldn't explain. It was as if he had always known that this moment would come. He exhaled slowly. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Lyra smiled again, a soft, reassuring smile. You don't have to be ready, Ethan. You already are. And with that, the hologram flickered out, leaving Ethan standing alone in the quiet of his office, the hum of the city outside his window. But something inside him had shifted. He wasn't the same man he had been just an hour ago. The pieces were falling into place, and though he didn't yet understand everything, he knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change forever. The days following the strange message from Lyra passed in a blur. Ethan found himself unable to focus on anything. His mind kept returning to the holographic image of Lyra, her calm and steady voice, and her words that seemed impossible yet true. He tried to tell himself it was all a misunderstanding, that he was just caught up in some kind of dream, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. The connection he felt when Lyra had spoken to him, it was real. He found himself staring at the small device she had left behind. It sat on his desk, just as it had since the night she had shown it to him. Despite the fact that he had spent hours looking at it, trying to make sense of what it all meant, nothing seemed to make more sense. The symbols, the bond, the prophecy, everything was still a mystery. One evening, after a long day at work, Ethan returned home, exhausted and frustrated. He tossed his bag onto the couch and sat down, running his hands through his hair. Was he supposed to do now? The more he tried to ignore it, the more everything about his life seemed out of place. He had never felt this way before. It wasn't long before his thoughts drifted back to Lyra, the way she had spoken to him, the way she had looked at him, as if she had known him for a lifetime. He had to admit there was something about her that was different, something that made him feel like she wasn't just another person. She was important. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed the device from his desk and pressed his fingers against it. Once again, the soft hum filled the room, and the familiar hologram appeared in front of him. It was Lyra's face, calm and serious, as if she had been expecting this moment. You've been thinking about me, haven't you, Ethan? Her voice was soft, but there was a sense of certainty in it, as though she knew his every thought. Ethan swallowed hard, not knowing what to say. I don't understand, Lyra. Why me? Why do you keep saying we're connected? What is this bond you keep talking about? Lyra's eyes softened, and she seemed to take a deep breath before continuing. The truth, Ethan, is that you've always been a part of something greater than yourself. This isn't just about you and me. It's about a legacy, a destiny that has been unfolding for a long time. A long time before you were born. Ethan blinked, his mind reeling. What do you mean? A legacy? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, my people, the ones who sent me to Earth, have known for centuries that you, Ethan, are the key to our future. You're the one who will make the difference in what happens next. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. I don't even know who you are, Lyra. I'm just a regular guy. I don't have any special abilities or... That's where you're wrong, Lyra interrupted gently. You've had these abilities all along, you just didn't know how to see them. Your life, your decisions, everything you've done, has led you here to this moment. Ethan shook his head, still struggling to wrap his mind around what she was saying. But I'm just... I don't know. How can I be the key to anything? No one's special. Lyra's eyes sparkled with warmth and understanding. That's what makes you so special, Ethan. You don't know your own worth yet. You've always thought of yourself as ordinary, but that's the very thing that makes you extraordinary. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to digest the weight of her words. Okay, so what happens now? What am I supposed to do, Lyra's expression grew serious. We need to prepare. The time is coming, Ethan. The time when everything we've talked about, everything I've shown you, will be put to the test. Your life, the choices you make from here on out, will determine the fate of your planet and of many others. Ethan's stomach tightened. But how? How do I prepare for something like that? I don't even know where to start. Lyra took a step forward, her presence almost magnetic. The first step is accepting who you are. You've already begun that process by asking the questions. Now you need to trust me, trust the bond we share, and trust that together we can face whatever comes next. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as he looked into her eyes. He had been so focused on the confusion and fear that he hadn't really thought about what all of this meant for his future. He had always lived a simple life, and now, suddenly, everything felt like it was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. What exactly are we facing? He asked quietly. What's coming? Lyra paused for a moment, her gaze distant. There are forces out there that want to destroy everything. They've been waiting for the right time to strike, and they know that you and I are the key too. Stopping them? There are enemies, not just on Earth, but in the stars, who would see our worlds fall. Ethan's mind raced. You're talking about war? Lyra nodded solemnly. Yes, but not just any war. This is a war for survival, for the future of countless species. And it's a war that only we can stop. Ethan felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. The weight of what she was saying felt like a mountain pressing down on his chest. He had never wanted anything to do with war. He was just a guy who wanted to live a quiet life. But now, everything had changed. He was part of something far bigger than himself. I don't know if I can do this, Ethan said, his voice trembling. I don't even know what to do. Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft yet strong. You don't have to do it alone. Ethan, I'll be with you every step of the way. You're not just a part of this story. You're the one who will lead us. I believe in you. For the first time, Ethan felt something stir inside him that wasn't fear. It was something else, something he couldn't explain. Maybe it was hope. Or maybe it was the first real sense of purpose he had ever felt. Lyra smiled warmly. I'll let you understand it's time to move forward. The fate of everything rests on your shoulders, but you don't have to carry it alone. Ethan took a deep breath. The weight of the future felt heavy, but for the first time, he wasn't sure he was alone in carrying it. The days after Lyra's revelation were both surreal and intense for Ethan. He tried to go back to his normal life, but everything felt different now. No matter how hard he tried, his mind kept going back to the strange bond he shared with Lyra. And the responsibility that now seemed to fall on his shoulders, he couldn't shake the thought of the fate of entire worlds resting on him. A regular guy who had never asked for any of this. The weight of it all was heavy, but a part of him, deep down, had started to accept it. There was something about Lyra's words that had settled in his heart, a quiet trust that slowly began to grow. He still had 1,000 questions, but he couldn't deny that the pull between them was real. Lyra had told him that he wasn't alone, and for the first time in his life, he believed it. Lyra hadn't visited him in person since the hologram message, but her presence lingered somehow in the back of his mind. Sometimes he would catch himself thinking about her, wondering what she was doing, how she was feeling, and if she was thinking about him too. The bond they shared wasn't something that could be easily ignored. One evening after work, Ethan sat in his small apartment, staring at the window. The sky was dark, and the city lights below blinked in steady rhythm. He was tired physically and mentally. Everything had changed, and yet his life seemed to keep moving forward, as if nothing had happened. His phone buzzed on the table, interrupting his thoughts. He picked it up, expecting a message from a friend or a work-related reminder. Instead, it was a notification from an unknown number. The message was brief. "Meet me at the park, midnight. I'll explain more." Ethan's heart raced. He knew who it was. The timing felt too perfect. Lyra, without wasting a moment, he grabbed his jacket and headed out. The night air was cold, but the feeling of anticipation in his chest made him feel warm. As he walked to the park, the city seemed quieter than usual, the streets empty and still. He couldn't help but wonder what would happen when he met Lyra again. Was she going to reveal more about the prophecy, more about his role in it? When Ethan arrived at the park, he saw no one at first. The path was empty, and the trees cast long shadows in the dim light of the street lamps. He felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. Had he made a mistake coming here? Was it some kind of test? Or worse, a trap? Just as he was about to turn back, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Ethan." He turned quickly. Lyra was standing in the shadows, her silhouette framed by the light of the lamppost. She looked even more striking in person. Her presence seemed to fill the space around them. Like the air itself changed when she was near. Lyra stepped forward, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and nervousness. He hadn't realized just how much he had missed her until now. "You came," she said softly, her eyes glimmering with something he couldn't quite read. "I'm glad." "I wasn't sure what to expect," Ethan admitted, his voice shaky. "I still don't really understand all of this, but I trust you." Lyra smiled, a warm, reassuring smile that made his heart beat a little faster. "That's why we're here, Ethan, to take the next step together." Ethan's mind raced. "Next step, what do you mean?" Lyra reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "The bond we share, it's growing stronger. Every time we're near each other, it becomes more powerful. With that power, you'll begin to see the truth more clearly. You'll begin to understand your purpose. The prophecy is real, Ethan, and you are the one who will change the future. But first, you need to embrace who you are, who you're meant to be." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of her words felt heavier now, more real. He wasn't just part of some dream or fantasy. He was part of something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes softening. "You don't have to be ready. You already are. The bond between us is your guide. Trust it. Trust me." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. There was something in her eyes, something that spoke of a shared history, a shared destiny. He realized in that moment that he didn't have to understand everything. He didn't have to have all the answers. All he needed to do was trust her, trust himself, and trust the bond that connected them. "I don't know how to do this," Ethan confessed, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Lyra reached up, cupping his face gently in her hands. "You don't have to do it alone," she said, her voice soft and steady. "I'll be with you every step of the way. You're never alone in this." The words felt like a promise, and for the first time since meeting her, Ethan felt a sense of peace. He had no idea what the future held, but he wasn't afraid anymore. Lyra was right. The bond between them was growing stronger, and with it came a sense of purpose he had never felt before. He wasn't just an ordinary man anymore. He was part of something greater, something important. As they stood there in the park, the quiet of the night surrounding them, Ethan knew that his life was no longer his own. It belonged to something much larger than himself. And with Lyra by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her voice soft but filled with determination. Ethan nodded. "I think I am." Lyra smiled, and for a moment, it felt like the world around them disappeared. All that mattered was the bond they shared, the connection that had brought them together and would guide them into the future. Together, they would face whatever came next, and nothing could stand in their way. The days following Ethan's meeting with Lyra in the park felt like they were happening in slow motion. Every moment seemed to stretch, each decision carrying the weight of a future he couldn't fully comprehend. Yet something inside him told him that he was ready, or at least he would be. Lyra had been a constant presence in his mind. He could feel the bond between them growing stronger each day. It wasn't just the sense of destiny that haunted him, but something deeper and undeniable pull, a connection that seemed to exist beyond time and space. It was as if they had known each other for much longer than just a few weeks. She was no longer just an alien from another world to him. She had become something essential to his life, his purpose, and his future. But despite his growing feelings for her, Ethan still had his doubts. His mind would often wander back to the simple life he had before Lyra entered it. He had been happy, or at least content in his small corner of the world. He had never asked for a destiny, never wanted the responsibility that came with it. Yet here he was, standing at the edge of something far larger than he could have ever imagined. One evening, just as he was preparing to call it a day, Ethan received a message from Lyra. "We need to talk. The time has come for you to take the next step. Meet me in the forest at dawn. It's time for the final test." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The next step? A test? He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew that this was the moment he had been waiting for. Everything had led to this. There was no turning back now. He barely slept that night, his thoughts a whirlwind of questions and fears. The following morning, he dressed quickly and made his way to the forest, the first light of dawn casting a soft glow on the trees. The air was cool, crisp, and quiet, with only the sound of birds in the distance. Ethan's footsteps seemed to echo in the stillness, his heart racing with every step he took toward the clearing where Lyra had asked him to meet. As he entered the clearing, he saw her standing there, her presence as powerful and serene as ever. She was looking out toward the horizon, her long hair flowing gently in the breeze. When she turned to face him, her expression was calm. But there was an intensity in her eyes that Ethan had never seen before. "You came," she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet pride. "I knew you would." Ethan stopped in his tracks, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. "What's this test? What do you mean the next step?" Lyra stepped forward, her gaze never leaving his. "This is the moment, Ethan. A moment when you decide if you're ready to embrace the truth, to trust yourself and the bond we share. Everything up until now has been preparing you for this. It's time to face your fears and step into your destiny." Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm not sure if I can do this. I've never been part of anything like this before. I don't even know who I am in all of this." Lyra smiled gently. "That's the first step. To admit that you don't know. Start somewhere. No one is born knowing everything. The truth is, the path you're about to walk is not an easy one. It's full of challenges and obstacles. But with the strength of our bond, you can face anything." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. He had never felt so vulnerable in his life. "But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough?" Reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and comforting. "Failure is part of growth. If you don't take risks, if you don't step outside your comfort zone, you'll never learn what you're capable of. You've already shown more strength than you realize. This test is not about proving yourself to me or anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that you can trust in the bond we share. Trust in me. Trust in you." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside his chest. Lyra was right. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that this was his chance to step up, to embrace his role in all of this. There was no going back now. Lyra's voice cut through his. "Thoughts, are you ready?" Ethan nodded, though uncertainty still lingered in his chest. "I think so," good Lyra said. "Then follow me." She turned and walked deeper into the forest, her steps light and sure. Ethan followed, his heart pounding in his chest. The trees grew denser as they moved further from the clearing, and the path became more uneven. The quiet of the forest was both peaceful and unnerving. Ethan couldn't help but feel that something was waiting for him, something that would test him in ways he wasn't prepared for. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyra stopped in front of a large, ancient tree. Its bark was thick and gnarled, and the roots twisted into the ground like fingers reaching for the earth. Lyra turned to face Ethan, her expression serious. "This is the place," she said. "The test will begin now." Ethan looked around, confusion clouding his mind. "What do I have to do?" Lyra's eyes glimmered with determination. "All you need to do is trust. Trust in the bond we share, and trust in your own strength. You've already taken the first step by coming here. The rest is up to you." Before Ethan could respond, the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the tree before them began to glow with an ethereal light. Ethan stepped back, startled, but Lyra remained still, her gaze fixed on the tree. "Trust," she whispered. Ethan closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing heart. He had no idea what was happening, but he could feel the pull of the bond. Between him and Lyra, the warmth that connected them, the strength that had been growing inside him, it was time to stop doubting himself. He had to believe in the strength of their connection, in the power that lay within him. When he opened his eyes again, the light from the tree was even brighter, and the ground beneath him seemed to shift. A soft glowing symbol appeared in the air before him, similar to the ones he had seen before. But this time, it didn't feel strange or alien. It felt familiar, like a piece of his own soul. Without thinking, Ethan stepped forward, his hand outstretched. The symbol began to pulse with energy, and the air around him seemed to crackle with power. His fingers brushed against the glowing symbol, and a sudden surge of energy flowed through him, filling him with warmth and strength. He gasped, the power rushing through him, but it didn't overwhelm him. It was the opposite, it grounded him. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly alive, truly connected to something greater than himself. As the light began to fade, Ethan looked up at Lyra, who was watching him with a proud smile on her face. "You've done it, Ethan," she said softly. "You've passed the test." The sun had barely risen the next morning when Ethan found himself standing at the edge of a quiet city park, his mind still processing the events from the day before. He hadn't been able to sleep much, his thoughts consumed by everything he had learned about himself, about Lyra, and about the role he was meant to play in the universe. It felt like his entire life had changed overnight. And yet, as he looked around at the familiar world around him, it all seemed so normal. How could everything feel the same and different at the same time? The past few days had been a whirlwind. Since the test in the forest, Ethan had begun to understand the depth of his connection to Lyra. It wasn't just a bond formed through words or moments. It was something much deeper, something beyond time and space. Every time they were near each other, the bond between them grew stronger. The truth was undeniable now. They were meant to be together. But as much as he had accepted that truth, there was still a part of him that struggled with the enormity of it all. How could he, a simple man from Earth, be the key to something so important? How could he, someone who had never wanted adventure, be the one who could change the future? Just as he was lost in his thoughts, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a message from Lyra. "Meet me at the lake. I have something important to show you." Ethan felt a flicker of excitement, mixed with a tinge of nervousness. Every time he met with Lyra, something new was revealed, and he had a feeling that this time it would be something even bigger. He made his way to the lake as quickly as he could, the anticipation building in his chest with every step. When he reached the lake, he saw Lyra standing near the water's edge, her back to him. The early morning light bathed her in a soft glow, her silhouette outlined against the calm water. She was waiting for him, just as she always seemed to. As Ethan walked up to her, Lyra turned to face him. Her smile was gentle, but there was something else in her eyes, something he hadn't seen before. It was as if she was finally ready to share the final piece of the puzzle. "You came," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth and sincerity. "I knew you would." "I'm here," Ethan replied, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. "What's this all about, Lyra? What do you need to show me?" Lyra stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "I need you to understand the true nature of the bond we share," she said quietly. "It's more than just a connection. It's a promise, a destiny that neither of us can escape. It's time for you to see that for yourself." Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "A promise," he repeated, trying to wrap his mind around her words. "Yes," Lyra said, nodding. "The bond between us is not just about power or fate. It's about something much deeper. It's about love. And you've known it all along, even if you didn't realize it." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Love. The word felt strange coming from her lips, as if it didn't belong in the same sentence as destiny or prophecy. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw the truth there, the certainty, the depth, the strength. "Yes," Lyra said again, her voice firm yet tender. "What we share is not just a connection of fate, it's a connection of hearts. You've felt it, haven't you? Every time we're near each other, every time we touch or speak, the bond grows stronger. It's not just a power, it's love, and it's meant to last forever." Ethan's chest tightened, his emotions swirling inside him. He had never considered love to be a part of all of this. It had always been about destiny, about what he was meant to do. But now, as he stood before Lyra, he realized that love had always been a part of it. It wasn't just about saving the world or facing the challenges ahead. It was about the connection they shared, something that went beyond anything he had ever known. "I don't know what to say," Ethan admitted, his voice a little shaky. "This is all so much." "I never expected any of this," Lyra smiled. Smile full of understanding. "No. But sometimes life has a way of surprising us. And the bond between us, Ethan, it's not just something you have to accept, it's something you need to embrace. You've always known there was more to your life than what you saw. This is your chance to see it, to be part of something greater." Ethan's mind was racing. He had always felt like there was something missing in his life, something he couldn't explain. But now, standing here with Lyra, he finally understood what it was. It wasn't just about fighting battles or saving the universe. It was about the love they shared, the connection that bound them together. "I'm scared," Ethan confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Lyra took his hand in hers, her touch grounding him. "You are. You've always been. The strength you need isn't just in your mind or your body, it's in your heart. And that's where our bond comes from. You don't have to be afraid, Ethan. You're not alone in this." The warmth of her words washed over him, easing the fear that had gripped him for so long. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he wasn't afraid anymore. He didn't need to have all the answers. He didn't need to understand everything. All he needed to do was trust in their bond. Trust in the love that was growing between them. "You're my forever," Ethan, Lyra whispered, her voice filled with certainty and love. And in that moment, Ethan understood. He'd always thought he was just a regular guy, living a simple life. But now he knew that his life had always been leading him to this point. The love between him and Lyra was more than just a bond. It was the foundation of everything that was to come, the strength that would carry them through the challenges ahead. Ethan stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He placed his hands on her shoulders, his heart pounding in his chest. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "I don't know everything, but I know this. I'm with you, always." Lyra smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "And I'm with you, Ethan, forever." Together, they stood at the edge of the lake, their hearts intertwined, ready to face whatever the future held. The journey ahead was uncertain, but they knew that as long as they had each other, they would never be alone.